The world you are told about is a ghost, the one where a single capital city dictates the fate of the global economy. That world no longer exists. While mainstream media stays fixed on the theater of the old god, a new map is being drawn right now. And if you are not looking at Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi this week, you are already behind the curve. On May 13th, the world's most closely watched plane touches down in Beijing. Donald Trump arrives for what the White House called a visit of tremendous symbolic significance. But in high stakes geopolitics, symbols are for the public, leverage is for the room. The mainstream story is that Trump is there to confront Xi Jinping, specifically over China's ties to Iran and Russia. The US is struggling to end a war that has destabilized the Gulf and shaken global markets, and they want China to pressure Tehran. But here is the question the West refuses to ask. Why will Xi Jinping fold? Because Xi holds what may be the most valuable insurance policy of the 21st century. China currently produces nearly 70% of global rare earth mining output, and it dominates a staggering 90% of the refining and magnet production required for every electric vehicle, smartphone, and missile system in the American arsenal. Since 2025, Beijing has strategically deployed export restrictions, proving it can impose real structural costs on the US economy at will. While the US delegation talks about economic fury, sanctions, and cutting Iran's financial lifelines, China has spent a decade making its own economy resilient. An electric vehicle revolution and massive coal reserves mean China's energy structure is no longer at the mercy of the Strait of Hormuz, not in the way Washington imagines. Only about 6% of China's total energy consumption is actually at risk from the Persian Gulf crisis. Trump needs a win before his midterm elections. Xi just needs to wait. As that duel unfolds in Beijing, the strategic weight shifts east to New Delhi. On May 14th, the BRICS foreign ministers gather under India's chairmanship. This is not just another diplomatic meet and greet. This is a strategic shield for the global majority. Mainstream analysts love to point to internal divisions within BRICS. They know that the expanded group now includes both Iran and the UAE, nations with deeply complicated, often tense relations. But that focus misses the deeper value at stake: sovereignty. The $1.17 trillion trade engine now powering intra-BRICS relations makes unity a financial necessity, not merely a political choice. In the last 2 decades, internal trade between these nations hasn't just grown, it has detonated, increasing 13-fold since 2003. That economic gravity is what allows India to perform the ultimate balancing act: non-Western but not anti-Western, even as the Middle East remains a fog of war. Iran's presence in New Delhi signals something important. Tehran no longer sees itself as an isolated pariah. It sees itself as a critical node in a geopolitical bloc capable of pushing back against Western pressure. And India is the only power on earth maintaining open lines with every player simultaneously: Washington, Moscow, Tehran. Right now, India is the glue holding this new reality together. Before we go further, I need your help. Think BRICS is not backed by lobbyists or billionaires. We are backed by viewers who want the truth. Support us with super thanks or buy us a coffee. You can find all links below. Help us to stay independent. All right, let's move to Russia now. While the foreign ministers talk security in Delhi, the real heist is being planned in Moscow. The 11th annual meeting of the New Development Bank is underway, and this is where the Global South is finally breaking the growth ceiling. For decades, developing nations were trapped in the same cycle: export raw materials, import high-tech goods, remain dependent on Western financing. The NDB's theme for 2026 is development financing in an era of technological revolution. That is the blueprint for ending that dependency. The NDB is no longer just building roads, it is financing nuclear sovereignty, funding large and small modular reactors, nuclear medicine, and grid upgrades. The goal: give its members a reliable, around the clock power supply for fast growing economies, independent of Western energy systems. But the most dangerous part of this heist for the old financial god is the AI leap. Moscow's seminars are not just about innovation, they are about building a financial plumbing system that the US Treasury cannot turn off. By waving AI into the financial sector and developing virtual asset markets, BRICS is creating infrastructure for a world that no longer needs to ask permission to move its own capital. To understand why all of this is happening right now, you have to look at the data mainstream reporting ignores. The 2026 United Nations Trade and Development Report reveals a truth that should rattle every boardroom in the West. Collectively, the BRICS nations now accounts for 27% of world output and 24% of merchandise exports. Measured by purchasing power parity, the expanded BRICS plus bloc now represents approximately 40% of global GDP, far outpacing the G7. This is not a loose association. This is a $30 trillion powerhouse projected to drive over 30% of global economic growth this year. But UNCTAD is also sounding an alarm. Soft initiatives are no longer enough. The moment calls for something bigger. Enter the Trade Plus strategy, a comprehensive region-wide agreement that merges trade with macrofinance, digital policy, and green transitions into a single multipolar reality. A plan to turn the old system's bottlenecks into linkages. By adopting Trade Plus, BRICS is synchronizing its trade networks with its own financial institutions like the NDB. The result is a self-sustaining ecosystem that bypasses the volatility of the dollar-led system. So, what does this convergence in Beijing, New Delhi, and Moscow actually mean? Mainstream media will tell you these are isolated events. A trade dispute here, a diplomatic meeting there. They're wrong. What we are watching is a coordinated pincer movement designed to secure technological and financial sovereignty for the global majority. You are no longer watching a protest against the West. You are watching the construction of a new world where sovereignty is no longer a request but a funded and technologically independent project. As Ambassador Anil Trigwanayat put it, the non-Western world is not necessarily anti-Western, but it is finished waiting for a seat at a table that was never built for them. The 1.17 trillion US dollars intra-BRICS trade engine is the fuel. The NDB is the bank. The Trade Plus strategy is the roadmap. As the NDB leaders wrap up their Moscow session, consider this line found deep within the official documents. Moving from the group of middle-income countries to the group of high-income countries requires a qualitative leap in industrial base and innovation. That is not a press release, that is an architectural drawing. The heist has already begun. The old maps call these nations emerging markets. The new maps don't ask what they are emerging into, they show what they are building. A world where power doesn't flow from a single capital. A world where the infrastructure of sovereignty, the banks, the reactors, the satellites, the trade routes belongs to the people who built it. That world is not coming. It is already under construction. The only question worth sitting with is this: are you watching the symbols or are you watching the deals? Let me know your thoughts, and as always, thanks for watching.